At this time, we're going to call to order the meeting of March 2nd, 2020. City Attorney, is there anything you want to report before we make a motion for closed session?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. If the City Council so moves, the City Council will move into closed session to discuss the items agendized for closed session discussion, specifically item number 1, conference with legal counsel pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9A, existing litigation, one case, Building Industry Association versus City of Hollister, San Benito Superior Court, case number 19-00028.
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Shall we go?
Mm-hmm.
They don't spray you?
No, I have a mail, I have a trap, that's like a mailbox. And they won't spray it, it's a white plastic box.
It's a wire cable.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, they'll spray that
I
one.
put a black bag over it,
Yeah.
but they still spray me.
They never spray in the little plastic one I have. They get scared of it. But then you go and just release them and run like.
What's that?
We done yet.
Run away from it.
This time, we're going to resume the meeting of March 2nd, 2020. Councilmember Resendez, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Ready, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Richmond,
Here.
Vice Mayor Spencer,
Here.
Mayor Velazquez.
Here.
Councilmember Resendez,
Present.
Interim City Manager Miller,
Here.
City Attorney Epperson,
Here.
Interim Chief of Police Reynoso,
Here.
and the record will show Councilmember Lenore as absent. The agenda for the City of Hollister City Council regular meeting of March 2nd, 2020 was posted on the bulletin board on February 26th, 2020 at 1:30 p.m. per Government Code Section 54954.2.
Thank you. City Attorney, will you please report out from closed session?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report out of closed session is that the City Council discussed in closed session the item agendized for closed session discussion, and direction was given to staff. The City Council recessed from closed session at 6:11 p.m.
Thank you very much. Okay, tonight we have a proclamation for American Red Cross. Helen?
Hi, I'm Patsy Gaska, I'm her boss.
Give me Helen's. All right. Whereas March is American Red Cross Month, a time when we recognize the humanitarian organization that eases people's suffering during life's emergencies in Hollister, across the United States and around the world. The Central Coast chapter has a long history of helping our neighbors in need by delivering shelter, care, and hope during disasters, making our community safer through its life-saving home fire campaign, providing life-saving blood, teaching skills that save lives, and supporting military veterans and their families. During this Red Cross Month, we thank and honor the selfless volunteers, all here tonight, dedicated employees, and generous supporters who make the compassionate work possible. Now, therefore, I, Ignacio Velasquez, Mayor of the City of Hollister, do hereby proclaim March 2020 as American Red Cross Month. I encourage all Americans to support this organization and its noble humanitarian mission. Thank you. Thank you for all of you. This is for all of you guys.
It's okay, we have plenty of time.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members. I want to first acknowledge my volunteers. I have David Gutierrez, I have Sal Duran, and I have John Crapeau. My other volunteers couldn't make it here, as well as my assistant today, Helen Cosentino, but we are honored to be part of this community and support it. We respond to a lot of fires in this area and a lot of community service preparedness that we do here with the schools, businesses, and the community itself. Our biggest program is also installing free smoke alarms for the community and making sure that they're safe with the partnership with Hollister Fire and the surrounding fire departments. So we thank you very much for all of the support that Hollister does with the American Red Cross. And like I said, we're honored to be here, and I wanted to showcase our volunteers that dedicate their time. Usually fires don't happen at between 8 and 5, usually at 1, 2 in the morning, and I call up my gang here, and they're right on it. Where do you want us? How quick? So I'm very proud of our volunteers. We couldn't do it without them, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you do for us.
Thank you.
going to move to the consent agenda. Are there any items council would like to pull? Any from the public? Okay, is there a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the consent agenda.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We're going to move to public input. This is the time for anyone in the audience to speak on any item not on the agenda and within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. Speaker cards are available in the lobby and are to be completed and given to the city clerk before speaking. When the city clerk calls your name, please come to the podium, state your name and city for the record, and speak to the city council. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes with a maximum of 30 minutes per subject. Please note that state law prohibits the city council from discussing or taking action on any item not on the agenda. Do we have any speaker cards?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Elias Salinas.
Good afternoon, or good evening, Mayor and council members. On February the 18th, 2020, I thought that maybe the council would have a fresh start with regards to the censuring back and forth of all members of the council. I just want to point out that this afternoon, Mayor, I'm going to quote you. So you are all right with people bullying him, but he is not allowed to stand up for himself. You may be all right with people calling him the F word, because it's very offensive that that word is not in my vocabulary. That stands for homophobic word. And effing kicking his ass, unquote. Like I said, that word is not in my vocabulary, and I find it very odd that it was very easy for you to go ahead and quote that on social media as the mayor of Hollister. I thought we were done with this, and I would really like a fresh start with all this non-bullying and stuff. And I'm going to quote you again, Mayor, on February the 18th, 2020, quote, "I can care less about the bullying somewhere else," unquote. So you're okay with this stuff going out on social media. I'm not okay with it. The constituents are not okay with it. And what I'm quoting from you from this afternoon is because people were disagreeing with you with what's going on with Measure K. And it's okay to disagree, but just because people disagree with you doesn't mean that people condone any ugly words being referred to Councilman Resendez. We're not condoning any homophobic words whatsoever. I don't know where that came from and why you're associating it with people who disagree with you when you turn around and you say that. It's kind of, I'm not homophobic. I don't use that word. I disagree with you on many subjects, but I do not in public ever disrespect you. And I would appreciate you, the same thing from you, not disrespecting the public because they disagree with you, that now you put them bunched up saying that they're homophobic or that they're approving of homophobic words against Councilman Resendez. Really, another thing is that happened on February 18th, 2020, and I'm going to quote Councilman Resendez. "It just happened right now in closed session. I can't go into details of what happened, but something did occur," unquote. Councilman Resendez is telling us what happened, but what didn't happen without saying too much in closed session. That's a violation of the Brown Act. And Mayor Velasquez, it is your duty as the official that sits in the middle of the dais to call out when people on your dais are breaking policy and laws. And a violation of the Brown Act is a violation that you need to call out. And I would like for all this to stop. Tomorrow is election day. I think we all need to get along. I think just because we disagree, and here comes November. It's gotten so ugly, I can just imagine what's going to happen between now and November. And it's not happening because people are throwing mud out there. It's actually happening because two of you are out there accusing other people of putting mud out there. If there's information and there's facts, please state them, information and facts. But it's got to stop. We got to get going on what is in the best for the city and stop the bickering.
Any other speakers?
I have no more speaker cards, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we'll move to item D1, City Manager's Report.
Nothing to report at this time.
Okay, D2, Trainings and Conferences.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. I'd like to report, excuse me. I myself attended EOC Director Training and also EOC Logistics Training in the last few weeks. And additionally, my entire staff has been attending OSHA-required trainings on a weekly basis. Currently, they've had their bloodborne pathogens, their airborne diseases, their personal protective equipment, their fall protection, the respirator training. I think that's where we're at right now. So they will be continuing for another 3 months. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Evening, Mayor, council members. Hollister Fire Department had a very active training couple of months. They went to leadership training, medical update training, opioid awareness, wildland, and also we sent a sheriff's deputy along with one of our fire captains to arson training, wildland arson training, and I attended a executive chief officer course at the National Fire Academy in Maryland, Emmitsburg, Maryland. We had several chief officers attend the emergency operations training that was conducted by the San Bernardino County Office of Emergency Services, along with many other staff members here that we saw there. That concludes my report.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And also for administrative services, we had staff in Monterey for HR and workers' comp related training.
Okay, is that it? Wait.
I have one.
Oh.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, Council, for the police department, we had during the month of February, K-9 handler school for Jason Hutchins. It's going to be our new K-9 officer, him and his new dog. They're still in certification training, so they were in that training for February. We had 3 officers, David Anderson, Rosie, Sergeant Batanio, and Sergeant Patty, at a technology media summit talking about being more, it's a training to be more open to what's going on with the police department, using social media and other things to get the message across a little bit better. We also had our newest animal control officer, Stephanie Kennedy, attend animal control training. Another officer, Jason Hutchins, again, taser instructor course, so he's going to be a taser instructor as well as our K-9 handler. Officer David Anderson and Officer Stacy Esqueda attended field training officer update course, which is a mandated course. And our new detective, Aurelio Malgoza, attended ICI arson and explosive course, which is one of the required courses for arson investigation. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I attended the Executive Management ICS 402 course in Salinas with Councilmember Richmond, and I believe it was Management Services Director Chambliss, and also attended the management section training at the county OES.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move to item E1.
I got
Do you have a
a
comment?
report at G1 still, on the committees which I serve. The ad hoc committee for revitalization of downtown, myself and,
Wait, are you?
Marty,
We're
I
not
think
there yet.
we're on E1.
oh,
Indeed.
Yeah,
I'm
we
lost.
just.
That's probably why it didn't fit in so well. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Go
I
ahead.
apologize.
E1.
Thank you. Good evening, Brian Swanson, Development Services Director for the City of Hollister. Tonight, staff recommends that the City Council read by title only, waive full reading, and adopt an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Hollister amending Chapter 15.04 of the Hollister Building Code. This essentially adopts the 2019 California Building Code.
Okay. Is there any questions from council? All right, this time we're going to open public hearing. Do we have any speaker cards?
I have no speaker cards, Mr. Mayor.
This time we'll close public hearing. Is there a motion?
Let's see
I
if can
move
get
that
back
we
on
adopt
track.
ordinance number 1187.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Thank you, council members. It's always very important to adopt these codes, so
Yeah.
appreciate that.
We'll move to item F1.
Good evening, council. The staff report actually speaks for itself. However, for transparency, I'm going to read a couple of things for the public so that they can hear it. This item is for authorization to execute an agreement between Union Pacific Railroad Company and the City of Hollister for the construction of new railroad crossing arms, gates, and new signal preemption circuitry improvements at the railroad crossing located at North Street, just west of San Felipe and North Street intersection. The Buena Vista Road, North Street project is currently under construction, and the railroad work is an integral part of that project and its successful completion. Executing this agreement will allow for Union Pacific to schedule the work and coordinate that road work with the completion of the North Street construction.
Okay, thank you for, this was one of the questions I was gonna have tonight is this what's holding up the opening of North Street?
It's part of
The
it.
rail yeah,
Yes.
I've
It's the
saw
biggest
that,
part.
I'm like, wow, that's right into the rails there, so.
Yeah, we can't do anything.
So that needs to be completed before North Street can be open.
That's right.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else from anyone? Okay, we'll go to speaker cards.
Catherine Sanchez, for item number F1.
My name is Kathy Sanchez. I live at 410 North Street. I'm a property owner, 410 North Street and 420. And I'm here on the item F to ask for the safety considerations and for street striping considerations. And as I read the item, I had the concern of the word highway. But first, the safety, that the speed limit, I hope, will be at the residential speed limit, and it already has a gate with lights on it across the traffic, and I would hope that we're going to have a sidewalk and probably more pedestrians that you consider in the design, maybe a pedestrian gate, something that would be safety for the pedestrians at that crossing. Also, I mentioned that North Street crossing has, I'll call it like a lighted gate arms across the traffic lanes, but I'd ask you to consider putting the overhead lights over the traffic, similar to what we have at First and San Benito Street, just because North Street's going to get more traffic, and it would make it more visible. And that crossing is close to commercial driveways and a residential driveway, and it's also close to a couple of intersections. Would be another reason, as it's going to get more traffic, maybe there could be that light overhead across the lanes similar to what is at First and San Benito. The consideration for the striping, I did read, and it said standard striping. And as you stripe across that North Street railroad crossing and up the hill on North Street, I'd ask you to include in that striping, yes, the standard, and at, I hope, a residential speed limit that is slow to traffic so that we can have calm traffic when that begins, and to include parking in front of our homes, 361 North Street, Mr. Enos's property, mine, 410, 420, 419, 409, and Nelia Sabados, that you consider that when you do stripe that we're still allowed to park in front of our homes. And the last, as I read it, it says highway, and that word makes me alarmed, that this is a street that is going to carry traffic. And when I was at another public hearing, I asked a question, and it said it was a connector street. And I hope we're still a connector street and we're not a highway. And if you can change that word, it would make me more comfortable, if it's just a word. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other
I have
speakers?
no more speaker cards, Mr. Mayor.
Can you address that? those
About the
questions?
highway?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I believe it's just a word. Before it was some of the older at-grade crossings. That's exactly what it's, at-grade crossing for the rails to cross a street. This is the first time I've seen it with highway, but it's not a highway crossing, it's a street crossing.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you have a question?
Yes. What is the intended speed limit there? The speaker spoke about residential speed limits. What was going to be the speed limits there?
I'm not certain. I think it's 35, maybe 40 miles an hour, something like that.
On the main
On the main street.
And as you enter into the area with the
Road,
with the residential area, does it drop 25?
I'd have to look at, I don't believe there's a.
Would you take a look at that,
I'll take a look at
please?
that, yes.
And see if-
There, I believe, also there at Thompson Street, we may have looked at possibly putting stop control in there also to break the speed before you
Oh,
you
okay.
get through there.
Yeah, anything to break the speed,
Yeah.
because the 35, people see it, but if the road is amiable, they just ignore it. I gotta be honest with you.
Yeah.
We can put up signs all day long, but if the road is amiable because there's no items there to slow them down, they're just gonna go as fast as they can go, so.
Yeah. Now, we'll take a look at
Let's
that.
take a look and see if we can get some controls there. I'm especially concerned because of the railroad
Absolutely.
crossing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Sendes?
How about parking in front of their houses?
Parking.
Along the roadway? So we have a parking lot next to Miss Sanchez that the developer built for her residents. Parking along the roadway, it's really something that the council could direct staff to look into. We would have to evaluate that roadway to make sure that there's adequate space and it's safe. But that's something that would take kind of a change order for us to look at, possibly striping some parking spaces. But that's something that would need to come from the council to direct staff to do that, so. And again, the issue we had on Meridian by the school, when you have people park on roadways, you're always susceptible to getting hit by cars. The one fact that we can't get away from is we have a lot of cars, and so we're not always able to park them on our property, and so people do have to park them on streets. But the more cars we park on streets, the more opportunities for damage or for accidents as well. So, yes.
You said next to Mrs. Sanchez,
Yes.
there's a parking lot, or there's
Spaces.
It-
Additional parking spaces, and we also offered a variance so that additional parking spaces could be built on the lot, which I believe they did.
It typically, we would never want to permit parking in a front yard of a home
Yeah.
without a variance. And so we thought, well, this would be an instance where a variance would be granted to give her parking if she wanted it in front of her house. But typically, we really don't want to have parking on city streets. If we think about a perfect planning world, we want to keep parking on personal property, but we all have a lot of cars, so people are forced to park on the street. So,
Okay, thank you.
The street, it is concerning me. Buena Vista is a speedway, and I'm sure we realize it's going to transfer right up here because it's going up over the hill and then speeding down past our residents. The speed limit 35, but is there any other strategies here before we end up in the same situation as Buena Vista? What else are we going to do here?
We can take a look at it. and-
Yeah, because I am concerned about that, because I've driven a few times to see what's taking so long as far as the road opening,
It-
and I can see it. This is going to be people coming up over the hill, As soon as they start going uphill, they're gonna pick up speed and continue it till they get to that light.
It's excellent points. I do think we need to open the road to see how it functions, and maybe seeing how that road functions will give us some strategies on maybe coming up with different calming measures. But until the road's open, it is a little difficult to know, how do we incorporate traffic calming or a road diet, because it was built the way the road is built right now. So, but it's something we can definitely have some oversight with. So.
And again, I think this is an opportunity, as a road is just gonna open, to set the standard there before it's, how do we fix it later? We find ourselves in problems over and over on that. Going back to the crossing, why wasn't this already, I thought this was already planned a long time ago as far as the upgrades on the crossing. Why is it coming in so late?
It was planned previously for the old alignment.
Speaker,
These
please.
are new guards
Mike.
that are gonna be placed. These are new guards that are gonna be placed for the road widening of North Street. So they're gonna have to remove those, guards and those,
So this is something that wasn't planned before, or what? How did this come about then?
well, the process to get through, the UP, application process, we just received the agreement. I mean, the railroad works at their pace. This has been in the works for a while.
Yeah, thought I remember this. So,
Mr. Mayor, I've received another speaker card.
okay. And just again, timelines. Give me an idea
For
what
the,
we're
for the
talking
completion,
about.
I had previously asked about this, and we were looking at maybe 90 to 120 days to complete this. When we send this agreement back to UP, I'll get an update as to when they will have their construction team in here to finish up the work that they need to do so that we can complete the road. And we can come
And
back and,
the striping is going to be done soon, or what's going on with the striping? As the resident asked.
yeah, I'm confused in terms of the striping. Is she talking about the railroad striping or the surface striping at the railroad
Let's ask her
cross?
so we get clarity, make
Yeah.
sure we're all on the same page here. Thank you for coming back up.
I'm Kathy Sanchez. When I looked at the agenda item, it had a drawing. The drawing had striping, and it referred to standard striping. And it included in the drawing, my properties, and that's why I'm here. So I believe the agreement you're going to go through is for at the crossing, and what's in the picture
okay.
of your attachment, it's up to in front of my home. And that's the striping I'm referring to.
Okay.
And I don't see that it's gonna allow us to park. I see bicycle lanes, I see traffic lane, I see a turning lane, and if it's slow enough, maybe the standard width of a lane is enough to let, if not me, maybe my neighbor park in front of their home. There's 6 of us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I know what she's talking about. She's talking about the surface improvement when De Novo Homes comes back through and finishes the surface improvements around the railroad area. They will finish the striping through there.
Okay.
And the striping in front of her home, it is currently designed for no parking. So we can go back and take a look at that if that's the council's desire for us to take a look at that. But right now, it would probably create the same situation that we dealt with over on Meridian Street.
I think that might be a good conversation to have with the homeowners to
Yes.
understand it, because coming downhill late at night could be a bad situation. So
Absolutely.
hopefully you can set up a meeting.
I'll
meet
work with her and talk with her.
Okay. And we had another speaker card.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Albert Anus?
Hi, Council Mayor. My name is Albert Enos. I own the property at 361 North Street, my wife and I. As the engineer was saying, the speed limit on that road, of Buena Vista North Street, was 25. Thompson Street is 25. Heading from Buena Vista North Street south on it's 25 miles an hour on Thompson. The stop signs are only on Thompson Street, not north Buena Vista. Parking, my home, I have the only home on the east side of Thompson Street. It's on the corner of Thompson and North. All of Thompson Street has been redlined on my side of the street. If I'm not allowed to park on Thompson or in front of my house on North Street, my renter doesn't have anywhere to park. So I would really hope that you take into consideration giving me some parking space there. Another problem is he just had some injuries and has diabetes, and he has very bad problems with his feet, so he has to be parked close to the house. Okay, and that's the only thing I have to say. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And again, I will work with Mr.
Thank you.
So I'm aware of his situation.
You guys have done a good job meeting with the homeowners in that area, so I appreciate it, and let's make sure we finish this off in the right way.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right, is there a motion?
I make a motion that we accept, oops, hold on. I've lost my place again.
2020-25.
I'm way back down here, I've been reading all this. I make a motion that we accept resolution, I'm getting there. Resolution 2020-25, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Hollister approving the public, I won't use that word.
Yeah. The at-grade.
The
crossing.
at-grade crossing agreement with Union Pacific Railroad for the North Street crossing improvements.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second? Is there a second? I'll second. The motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries.
Thank you.
Bless you.
All right, we're going to move to items G1, reports from city council members regarding their committees. Councilmember Resendez?
Nothing to report.
Okay. Councilmember Spencer?
These are for board meetings. On February 19th, I had an MBARD meeting. I have some vacancies on the advisory committee. I am putting this out because I need 1 medical professional and 2 public members. So if anybody's interested, please contact me. My phone number is 673-3367, and I'll get an application for you. Thank you, and that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Council members?
Richmond.
Thank
I'm
you.
like, I'm trying to get used to everybody.
Thank you.
It's Monday.
I was so anxious to get this report in. I tried getting it in 10 minutes early. Now I'm back from outer space, and I'm going to put it in the right order. Anyway, the major item I have to report on is the ad hoc committee for revitalization of downtown, consisting of myself and Councilmember Lenore, who is not present today. We went to a very, very, very informative and well-attended meeting at the Vets Hall, conducted by the Hollister Downtown Association, that gave a fascinating history of the Hollister Downtown Association and its relationship to downtown and things it's done, and talked about where it's going. And we also had to follow that with a freewheeling discussion between everybody who's there about things we think need to be done downtown to revitalize. As you can imagine, because there were so many people there and they have different points of view, there was some disagreement. But I think overall there was a lot of agreement on what to do. Now the question is what steps to do it. One of the things everybody kind of agreed on was we've got to slow the traffic down and get the traffic quiet and slowed on San Benito Street. And there was some recommendations for putting in more stop signs. I like that recommendation. It has to pass muster with the planning department, obviously. There were very, very positive feedback from many of the business owners. And I want to specifically thank Supervisor Hernandez, who's a member of the board now of the Downtown Association, for his contribution to this meeting and kind of running the meeting. I think he did a good job of balancing it out. There are things people want they're not going to get because they're not practical, and we can't pay for them. I just have to be honest. But there are a lot of things we could do that would make an impact, I think, immediately. We all came to an agreement that one of the worst things you can have is an empty store. And several people volunteered to take a look at working with the store owners so that if there's a vacancy, they put something in the window, something to make it look like it's still a viable shopping district. And so when people come out of the store and they look to the left and they look to the right, they don't just see an empty window with some cardboard or whatever it is. I can't tell you how important that is in doing that. They talked about it's always the same issue concerning parking and concerning the certified farmers market. I can't go into it in all the detail that needs to be done, but I want to say I thought it was an extraordinarily productive meeting, one of the most productive I've been in on this subject. And as soon as Councilmember Lenore gets back, we intend to have a separate meeting with the building owners and with the business proprietors and see if we can't bring them together so that we can come up with a situation where we can afford what we need and we can make it work. I think it's vitally important to the economic health of the city of Hollister that we do something with downtown and not just let it languish. There's no magic bullet. I wish there were. There's a lot of ideas for small things. Some of the major items we're talking about changing the parking on the street so it slants in, maybe go to one lane, and that we can put pop-up parkettes so that people during the 7 or 8 months where we could be outside, people could rent those spaces and put tables outside and so on and so forth and have outside operations all the time and still be safe because the street would be wide enough and still be able to service it with emergency services and so on and so forth. So again, I know everybody wants a solution right now. I wish I had it. We're only several years behind the 8 ball, but we are working on it. And I think we're going to try something dramatic concerning control of traffic. If we can get an okay from our experts in planning, our experts in law enforcement concerning how to set the street up. So I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
See, wasn't that worth waiting?
My report is for COG. We had our first meeting, well, not our first meeting of the year, but the meeting where we appoint the chair and vice chair. I was appointed as chair for this year. One of the conversations, the most important conversation, was about Highway 25 and how we need to be more aggressive on our timeline for Highway 25. We're losing some time through different issues going on with Caltrans. But one of the things we did talk about, and I want to make sure we're doing it here at the city also, is making sure that each month we're sending a letter asking for help to the state representatives and the federal representatives. In the past, there's been a tendency for people to say, well, nobody's ever asked for our help, which is not really correct because we've been talking to these people for years. But we want to make sure that every month they're very clear that we need their help financially and their participation to help cut through some of the issues we're going to have on that project. Currently, there is over $2 million available to the city for dollars to use as far as local road repairs in the city of Hollister. I'd mentioned that before. That's available, ready to use anytime we want to go over and pick up a check. We can use that dollars. I know we're going to be using some of it for this season, but I want to make sure if you pick up the check, you probably won't come back. That's the problem.
I'll come back.
So we're making good progress on that, and we're asking the public to really get involved this year at our meetings at COG. We will be talking about having the meetings a little later to make sure the public can attend and participate, because it's going to be very, very important. At this point, Caltrans is still moving forward with the roundabout at 25 and 156. We've had endless conversations about it. We're still trying to have them rethink that strategy and invest in an overpass rather than a roundabout. So that conversation does go on. But overall, very good news at the COG level, and this is the year we're going to make decisions on what we're going to do and how we're going to do it and how much it's really going to cost. So I was proud to see the board work together on that. All right, we're going to move to item G2, informational reports. Councilmember Resendez.
Nothing to report.
Vice Mayor Spencer.
Oh, that's me. I forgot. On February 18th, I, myself, Mr. Swanson and Mr. Hillstock met with Dr. Tannenbaum and Rob Zimmerman, the project manager, to discuss the cost share of a new lighted crosswalk at the intersection of Powell and Nash for the safety of all the children. We discussed concerns and a few other things, but we are working on the last details of this agreement and hopefully come to an agreement for a cost sharing for this very important crosswalk at Powell and Nash. Not only for the high school students, but it's for all students coming and going from school. It's a very busy intersection, and teenagers think they're invincible and they run out in front of cars. On the 22nd of February, I attended the 99th Annual Awards Dinner Dance. I was honored to be able to present the award winners with plaques. Crystal Lamonto got Woman of the Year, and Andrew Shelton got Man of the Year. And I gave out certificates to all the businesses and everybody else that just an amazing job that these business owners do. The event was held at Leal Winery. It was absolutely gorgeous. And last Saturday, I attended the wine and chocolate tasting at Twin Oaks. Their March calendar has many events coming up. March 8th and the 22nd, they are doing an aromatherapy massage Sunday from 1 to 3. You guys need to check out their website to find all of the other activities that they have for this month of March. I do have one other thing that I would like to do. I'd like to ask the city attorney, along with the city clerk, to look at initiative language for the November election for a local measure to limit the mayoral and city council terms. I'd like for the language to include 2 four-year term limits for city council, which would be 8 years total, and 4 two-year terms for the position of mayor, which would also be an 8 years total. I would like, if it could be, not that I would like, if it could be, the language would be the service of existing terms being served. Is there some way we could have this done to see a draft, maybe for the end of April?
I will look into that and see if that's possible. I believe that should be possible within that timeline.
Okay.
I
Thank you.
believe if you're looking at putting this on the November ballot for 2020, it would not go into effect until 2022.
Okay, I understand that. But it would be if we could get it, I mean, if it's feasible, if we can do it, I'd like to see it, to see some kind of proposal in April, and then we could submit it to the election in August.
We would request, we would request to have an initiative placed on the ballot. We are already going to be, I believe I'm going to work on a resolution in April to do a consolidated general municipal election for council seats for mayor, District 1 and District 4. So there may be a different deadline for initiatives, so I would need to check with the county on that.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
And I'm done.
Okay. Councilmember Richmond?
Thank you. So I first have to report two ex officio contacts I made during the time. These were basically contacts that are not in front of the public, discussions, private discussions, but you're entitled to know who they're with and what they're about. So you know I'm not selling the city of Hollister in the back room somewhere. The first one was with Mr. Ariola, who represents Dahl Properties Incorporated, who is the developer of Chaparral. Is that the correct road name, Chaparral? Chapel Road. Thank you. Chapel Road shows you how much attention I was paying. Chapel Road, and we discussed. He just as a reminder, his group has put forward, working with some other people, some kind of master plan for that area. We discussed that master plan. Also discussed items that came up in front of the city council, such as what to do about the park proposal to have a benefit park there for the area where it collects stormwater drainage, and also several other items that would normally be done and what we could do about it. I did not make a firm recommendation, but told him one of the possibilities is to do a what do you call it? A development agreement with the city that would basically cover everything. So we don't kind of nickel dime it to death and try to be arguing about this and that and everything. Maybe we could look at the whole thing and also put it in some kind of a time capsule when to do it. So that was one ex officio contact. The second ex officio contact was with members of the Hawkins Company, who are the developers of the Hollister Ranch down the street here, where you see the Aspen Dental going up and so on and so forth. So they have some input to the city concerning their proposals, what they want to do, their options, and they've asked the city to talk to them, city members to talk to them concerning what the options are and ask questions. And that's done in such a way that there's no Brown Act violation. So it was, for that particular meeting, the members who attended were myself, who was the only council member, and the city manager. So we did talk to them at some length and got some information from them and gave them some information back and so on and so forth. Finally, those were the two ex officio contacts I had. Finally, I want to talk about the library in Porterville. For those of you who may have been watching the newspaper here a couple weeks ago, they had a fire at the 67-year-old library at Porterville. It suspected was arson, suspected arson by two young people, 13 years old, I believe. The library, 67-year-old library at Porterville did not have any fire protection, in that it is not sprinkled and had no other protection, special protection. The fire resulted in the death of two firefighters. I don't remember their names, I'm sorry, but my condolences to the family of firefighters. And so the first thing that came to my mind is, I know how old our library is. I don't remember ever seeing any sprinklers in there. And so I got off my dead butt and went over and talked to the people. And the library, of course, is 50 years old, which means basically, unless it had a major rebuild, it's essentially 50-year-old design, safety design, which is, no matter what you do, 50-year-old safety design is pretty old, okay? Things get better. And we do not have a sprinkler system in our library. And God forbid we have a fire in our library. I can't tell you what the result might be because I'm a layman. I'm not a fire expert. But I can tell you, if it's got all that paper and it's got all that wood and it's got a 50-year-old building and there is no sprinkler system, there is a potential for an enormous disaster. Hopefully nobody gets hurt, nobody loses their life, but you could lose the entire library of the county library. What's the point of my speech? The point is, that's what happens if you don't fix your infrastructure. And I got to tell you something, as a person who's got a few years on them, I'm 78. As a person who's got a few years on them and starting to feel those years, I'm just kind of getting tired of people telling me, well, we don't have to worry about it, the library hasn't burned down yet, or the building hasn't fallen down yet. And they always say that until it happens, and then they blame something else, okay? And that goes for the entire infrastructure of the city of Hollister. The key infrastructure items have to be taken care of. Public safety is the #1 priority. It has to be, because if you're not safe, nothing else is worth anything. Therefore, we've got to take care of our infrastructure, and I think it's about time that the people who live in the city of Hollister stop complaining about how much taxes they pay to the high school. That's between you and the high school. You don't want to pay taxes to the high school, don't vote for it. But don't starve us for taxes because you're paying it to the high school. It has one has nothing to do with the other. Your child might just as easily be here as sitting in the high school when a fire starts, okay? Or when an earthquake comes and a building facade collapses. Ladies and gentlemen, what you leave behind is really important. We are sitting in what was a Carnegie Library. And for those of you who are old enough, know that throughout the United States, Mr. Carnegie, who was probably a billionaire at the time, which is a lot of billions, a long time ago, and I think he was in the steel business, if I'm not mistaken, went out in all these little towns and built libraries. And this was the Carnegie Library, is now the City Hall, and we're still using it because we left behind a decent structure. If we don't leave behind a decent structure, then why be here? Why bother? Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. This weekend I did my monthly town hall meeting on social media. Same things were popping up: speeding, Buena Vista Road, speeding on Lad Lane, speeding on South Side Road, or it's a monthly theme going on there. And we really need to, I know it's hard, and we've talked about this so many times before, but something has to be done. They're literally using these roads as drag strips. And anybody that wants to go out there on a weekend and hang around for a while will hear this happen every single weekend, or sometimes during the week when somebody just wants to go out and do donuts in the middle of the road there. So something has to happen. We have to have another conversation because what's going on is not working. We have to put the pylons, the plastic ones, in the middle of the road or something. Something needs to change before disaster happens, and it will happen.
Just so you know, Mayor, I had conversations this afternoon with staff on those roads.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
We're working on a plan right now.
Hate to bring it up every other month here, but it needs to be talked about.
We are working on a plan.
The other common thing that comes up at these town halls are the sound walls, and this is something we've talked about so many times for so many years. Ways to fix it. I've recommended in the past. Let's use local landscape companies so our people can do other things. This is what they're good at doing. I don't know why it's been an issue in the past, but it's the same issues. That's what I'm trying to point out here. And we've talked about them. We know there are solutions to this, but we just can't keep making the same mistakes. And I know everybody tries hard, but not cutting it. It's not making it. So let's see what we can change on that. If we're going to talk about an election item, make sure we bring up the cost. We talked about this in the past. We're upwards of $200,000 or something like that when we talked about it in the past, $150,000, $200,000. So let's be very clear to taxpayers what's going on here. And that is it for me. City manager,
Nothing to report?
city attorney,
Thank you. No report, Mr. Mayor.
chief.
I just want to make a comment about the South Side Road, that engineering has gone out there this week, and they've put on some survey devices out there. So we're hoping to get some information to help us pinpoint when is the best time to go out there and do some enforcement. Officers have been going out there, but like we've said, they see the car and they slow down. I've also reached out to the California Highway Patrol and asked them, advised them of this problem, and they've been advised so that whenever they're in the area to make a special patrolling in that area as well. So anxious to get the report back from engineering and see where we can go and work together to address it and be as efficient as we can with citations or whatever else we need to do out there.
Thank you. City clerk.
I was actually going to report out on some chamber events and HDA events, but I didn't bring my paperwork, so I know Walk a Mile in Our Shoes is coming up, and I think HDA has spring cleanup coming up, and I too attended the San Benito Chamber Annual Award and Dinner Dance, and I have to say, Jennifer and Michelle make an awesome team. They really did a good job. It was really nice.
And I just have one thing to say. Christine, you looked gorgeous.
All right. All right. HIJK, there's no business. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.